excited playing a venue called The Basement. I've never performed in the basement before. Brought back some really nice memories when I was a little kid. I did a lot of bad stuff in my aunt's basement with my older cousins. Had my first beer when I was 8 in her basement. Smoked my first joint in her basement when I was 10. And when I was 11, I kissed my first cousin in her basement. So Walter, I'm going to have a birthday. I'm going to turn 63 this month. There's no longer anything to celebrate. At this point in my life, it's more of a countdown. So, in my almost 63 years of life, I've had some really weird shit happen. But there's one thing that's happened to me that I ask everybody, and it's never happened to them. So I'm just going to ask, has anybody ever gotten a titty whipping? I'm not talking about a motorboat, between the tits, just I'm talking about a full frontal facial assault by some boxing glove titties. Just me? Okay, well, here's what happened. My family used to own a diner. And my mother had this habit of pissing off employees. So she pissed off the head cook, and I thought, if this guy doesn't show up tomorrow, I'm going to have to do his job and my job. So he stormed out of the diner, and I followed him to a strip club. So he's sitting there having a little lap dance, and I'm talking to him. He says, all right, I'll come in tomorrow. So the stripper gets up from him, starts walking over to me. I said, no, I'm not here for that. I'm just here to talk to this guy about my family's business. He looks at me and said, I think you need a titty whipping. So it was like a 3D movie. These massive, blubbery things were in my face. And then the next thing I remember, I'm sitting on the bumper of the ambulance, and they're going over my injuries. Dislocated jaw, broken nose, and they couldn't find my glasses. So, keeping on the subject of old age, I just had an outpatient procedure to have a Pez dispenser surgically implanted in my ass cheek. And what this thing does is it releases testosterone pellets when my body needs it. And it helps with different ailments such as erectile dysfunction. So after the procedure, the doctor said to me, in about 2 weeks, you're going to get some really good wood. And I said, that's good, but I broke up with my girlfriend. I'm not fucking anybody. So that wood probably going to just rot in the lumberyard. So she said, well, I'm not going to give you a refund, and I'm not going to give you a hand job. And I said, fuck you, what are you, a mind reader too? I don't know if you noticed I have this little nervous tick with the mic cord. It's just a nervous tick. But what's weird is when I still have that tick when I perform in venues with a cordless mic. So I was at a venue with a cordless mic the other night, and I got off the stage, and a woman said, I have to ask you, were you jerking off up on stage? And I laughed, and I told her no. I told her about the tick. And then I smiled, and I thanked her for thinking that my dick was that big. I learned a new term working in a venue called hotbox. Does anybody know what that is? Oh, yeah. It's when you're in a room that has no ventilation and people are smoking pot, and you get a contact high. Well, I don't smoke pot, and I never got high. But I got home, and the next morning I went out to my car and I found all these empty White Castle boxes in my car. And I don't remember going to White Castle. But I told the story at a show about a week ago. And this guy came up and he says, yeah, I want to tell you my hot box story. Okay, tell me your hot box story. He said, I was fucking this nasty bitch, and she gave me gonorrhea. I call her pussy a hot box. So now I have two definitions of what a hot box is. I lived in Atlanta for a while back in the early 80s. I worked for one of those tax preparation companies. I won't mention them by name, but it's 2 initials and a piece of concrete, so you can probably figure out who I worked for. And we were running out of paper forms, and I had to go down to the federal building. And I'm in line, 8 people in line. This crazy lady comes up to me. Nobody else comes up to me and starts addressing me as Rainbow Division. I don't know what the hell she's talking about. She says, Rainbow Division, stand at attention. Rainbow Division, get ready. And she puts her fingers in her ears. She goes boom and walks away. 2 minutes later, the federal marshals come running down. They put her in handcuffs, take her away. She says, what about Rainbow Division? They come over to me, put me in handcuffs. I said, I'm not Rainbow Division. My name's Joe Scrocca. I said, oh no, we have a picture of you. You're Rainbow Division. So they process me upstairs, realize I'm not Rainbow Division, get back to the office, apologize to my boss. He says, well, at least you're relieved, that's over with. I said, relieved? Fuck no. There's some crazy guy named Rainbow Division that looks just like me wandering around Atlanta. That's not settled, that's bullshit. And when we lived in Atlanta, we lived in this apartment complex that was it made it just young couples, and it was like a fuckatory. Everybody was fucking all the time to hear the walls. And, we got to know our neighbors, John and Ray. They were a nice couple. And then we had to leave Atlanta. But, they were going to ask us to maybe do that couple swap thing, which would have been cool. I guess it was okay, because John seemed cute. So, we were talking about dating. Here's another gay joke. We're talking about dating. And, I've been banned from every dating site. And it's just because I don't like when people they insult me, because I'm 5'6", I'm a sawed-off Guido. And, when these tall women are on there, oh, I don't date anybody shorter than me. I have to respond by saying, I may be shorter than you, but I have a really big cock, and I could really make you see God. They report me, I get banned, that's the end of it. One time, I got a response. It's a beautiful 6'3" woman, she responds to me, she said, baby, what would you do with me to be with that big cock? I said, I would climb you like a monkey climbing a tree. I would make you see God, and I would make you scream for more. I said, baby, that sounds nice. Now, what are you going to let me do to you if my cock's bigger than yours? I reported her to the dating site. They banned me for telling her I had a big cock. I thought false advertising was banned, but it was not so. So I went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida by myself, and I got bored hanging around the pool, so I did a little sightseeing. And I came across this town called Wilton Manors. Has anybody heard of Wilton Manors? Yeah. Second gayest town in America. Now, I'm not gay, but I was curious, so I figured, let me go to a bar, and I sat down, had a drink, mind my own business, and this guy comes up to me, says, how much? How much what? How much hair do you have under that shirt? Nobody's ever had to ask me that question before. I didn't know how to answer it, so I just lifted up my shirt. I showed my chest. He starts petting my chest. I said, all right, I'll be his little Italian sheep pet for a while. Maybe I'll get a free drink. But I said, not below the equator. I'm not gay. It's right in my face and said, sweetie, if you ever want to switch teams, you give me a call. I want to be your teacher. And he gives me his number, which I still have. Anytime I go down to Fort Lauderdale and I want my chest pet, I give him a call. I'd like to end my set with a cute story about the first time I had sex with a prostitute. It was 1978, Atlantic City, New Jersey. I was 17 years old. Resorts International just opened up. And you had to be 18 to gamble, so I had a fake ID and a $10 bill. And I hit on a slot machine for a little over $500. So I looked at money, I said, I'm going to go have sex with a prostitute. So I went out to Pacific Avenue where the prostitutes hung out. Approached the woman by the way she was dressed. I figured she was a prostitute, but I wanted to be polite. I asked her, are you a prostitute? She looks at me and said, are you the police? I said, no, I'm just a 17-year-old kid that wants to have his first sexual experience with a prostitute. She said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, how much does it cost? She said, how much money do you have? I said, $500. She said, well, I usually charge more than that, but you're cute. I'll give you a blowjob for that. I said, okay. She said, show me the money. I show her the money. She said, follow me. So I follow her around the corner. We go to this place that said hotel, but looked more like what I would think a crack house would look like. So she gives the front desk clerk some money. He sets an egg timer for 10 minutes. We start walking up the steps. I'm thinking, how am I going to tell my mother she's going to have to take me for a shot of penicillin tomorrow? This is going to be bad. So we go into the room. She says, give me the money. Give her the money. Sit on the bed. Take your dick out, which I did. She puts a rubber in her mouth and starts to put the rubber on my dick with her mouth. Halfway down, that's it. I'm done. I come. She said, oh, honey, that's too bad. I said, no, I'm young. I have stamina. Keep going. I could come again. She says, oh, no. One and done. Easy come, easy go. I said, there's like 5 minutes left on the egg timer. I said, no, that's it. You have a good day. And she leaves. So I clean myself up. And I start walking out of the place. And I came up with 3 life lessons that I'd love to share with you tonight. The first one is, never tell a prostitute that it's your first time with a prostitute. Second, never tell a prostitute how much money you have. And third, guys, this is the one that's most important, even if you forget the other 2. Always negotiate that second shot on goal, because you're going to want to come again. Thank you. I'm Travis Scrocca.
Guys, make some noise for Scrocca, everybody.